So I will admit right now, there is a chance that this trade could end up having no real impact. But for some reason I think it could, so I want to talk about it anyway, mainly from the Wizards' perspective. I think for the Clippers' perspective, this Marcin Gortat for Austin Rivers trade is them basically saying if DeAndre Jordan is gone, then we have somewhat of a backup plan at the center position with Gortat. I don't think Gortat is that great, but whatever. He can fill in for a year and then he won't kill us long-term in salary if we were to sign someone else. That's pretty much all it is for the Clippers. For the Wizards, they take in a guy in Austin Rivers who improved last season. His three-point shot was a real thing. He has some abilities of shooting threes off the dribble, sometimes on pull-ups. You could also argue that he does it too often, and sometimes he feels himself on offense a little too much overall in terms of over-dribbling, sometimes taking some bad, whether it be mid-rangers or bad floaters. Although to his credit, I do think he has cut down on some of those things over time. And overall, he had probably his best season this year for the Clippers, right? Could Austin Rivers actually walk in to Washington, assuming he accepts his player option, which you got to assume he's going to, then can he be a real piece for the Wizards? Potentially. And this is what I want to talk about, because for whatever reason, I just can't seem to go a couple months without mentioning the Wizards. Maybe it's because I like John Wall and Bradley Beal so much. So, the thing that I've said with the Wizards, besides just they need a culture reset, they need more defense, and maybe they could get that with whatever center they managed to get in free agency here. But I've also thought that they've needed a guard who can play with John Wall in the sense of make threes and play off the ball, and I think Rivers could do that. I mean, he played off the ball with Lou Williams a lot this previous season. But then also be a guy who can dribble the ball with Bradley Beal in the game, because while Beal can make plays for himself, I think he can be an elite player in terms of playing off the ball, right? And Austin Rivers has some ball handling duties. So could that be a thing? Well, before I even dive into that, let's talk about Thomas Satoransky a little bit, a guy who was really good for them when John Wall was out, and someone who Scott Brooks has really struggled to play when John Wall has been healthy, and I think that's a mistake because Satoransky's a good defender. He has a lot of Sean Livingston in him where he knows what he can't do, and as a result, he ends up being like this efficient guy who keeps the ball moving and plays hard and just never makes the wrong play, I guess. And he's also a good playmaker. Good passing instincts and all that. I think in a perfect world, you could find ways to play Rivers and Satoransky together at times. I think Satoransky has some potential to play like small forward, so maybe the first substitution of the game could be like Bradley Beal. Actually, we'll say John Wall exits the game because I like him with the second unit. He leaves the game, and then Satoransky's the first guy in, right? Then what you could do is late first quarter or so, you put in Austin Rivers for like Bradley Beal, right? Or not Bradley Beal, for like Otto Porter. Satoransky moves down to the 3, Beal is still the 2, Rivers is the point guard. You do that for a couple minutes, then John Wall comes back in, and you just keep this constant rotation of these guys throughout your point guard and your small forward spots, right? Between like John Wall, Bradley Beal, Otto Porter, Austin Rivers, Thomas Satoransky. I do think that could be like kind of a viable thing for you, right? Where, you know, Rivers can make some plays and hopefully be like an actual pick and roll player and allow Bradley Beal to play off the ball some, but also play off the ball himself when Satoransky is the one dribbling. And you would hope that Scott Brooks would actually do all of these things in terms of staggering the stars and also having some more off-ball sets for some of these guys. But it is also Scott Brooks, so there's a chance that does not happen. But if it did, then I think there could actually be a chance for the Wizards to just be like a pretty decently exciting team. I think the versatility also goes to some of their front court positions. There's still Kelly Oubre, who was good for them at power forward. There's Markieff Morris, who's an NBA player, I guess. Does he have any potential at the center position? I mean, offensively, maybe he could have some spacing, and, you know, he's probably a good enough ball handler to beat some fives off the dribble. Defensively, probably wouldn't have too much of a chance. I mean, you know, he's improved his defense throughout, like, little portions of his career. I mean, 2 seasons ago, or maybe it was this previous season, I don't know, the year that Scott Brooks yelled at him to play more defense than he actually kind of did. I mean, that's not bad, but it's definitely not ideal. But I do think the Wizards, they're in this weird spot right now where I could see next season going one of 2 ways, where they have a whole lot of versatility between Oubre at the 4, Morris at the 4 or the center spot, Porter can play small ball 4, Satoransky can play a few positions, Austin Rivers can play either guard spot, and then you have John Wall and Beal. And I think if you mixed all that together in a certain way, you could actually be this team that may not be like super talented outside of the top 2, because I do think we kind of forgot how good John Wall is just because this year he was injured for most of it. And then outside of those 2, you just have a lot of good versatile stuff. And you hope, like, okay, if Rivers' 3-point shooting is a real thing, and he doesn't over-dribble, and Satoransky actually gets playing time, and Oubre's 3-point shot is a real thing, and Morris is all the way invested in actually playing basketball correctly, and then they went out and they found just a decent enough center, and I mean, that is a bit of a challenge right now. Then I look at all that, and I assume that, like, John Wall doesn't get hurt, and I'm like, yeah, that could be a good team, a good modern-day team that, sure, isn't, like, a picture-perfect one. Like, there's definitely better small ball 4 options out there than Kelly Oubre Jr. and Otto Porter. And there's definitely a lot of conventional 4s that are better than Markieff Morris. But it's not bad nonetheless. And I think the other reason why I'm okay with this is because Rivers is on a 1-year deal. So if it doesn't work out, then, you know, whatever. Didn't work, but you still got Gortat out of there, which you had to do anyway, right? The question now is, who plays at center for them? Because you could go with Mahinmi. I mean, he's not that good, but I think he's a serviceable enough 15 minutes a game. You could go with Jason Smith if you really have to. Your defense and rebounding would suck, but at least you'd have some shooting. Their real option is to go in free agency. The problem is they're currently at $124 million on the salary. So you don't have all the money in the world to do stuff with. In fact, as of right now, they're actually $1 million over the salary cap for the 2019 season, which is, of course, not good. Now, you do still have a mid-level. You have about $5.5 million. I hope they don't sign Dwight Howard, because, I mean, at this point, we know what Dwight is. Like, does he still have talent? Yes, he's still a good rebounder. I don't even think he's that bad of a defender at this point. It's just, he's a bad culture guy, and the Wizards have all those problems anyway. And he's also just not okay with doing what he should do, which is set screens, run the floor, go for offensive rebounds, and never post up. But he wants to post up, and I mean, if you look at stats, it's like, if Dwight Howard's on your team, just cough up like 4 possessions a game. Just throw those 4 possessions in the dumpster, because he's going to post up. Nerlens Noel is out there. I wouldn't be that excited about him after his time with the Mavericks. Sure, Rick Carlisle, was he perhaps a bit stubborn? I mean, maybe, but Nerlens wasn't good when he was actually out there, so who the hell knows? His discipline on defense wasn't really there. Sometimes he went for steals too often. Sometimes he would go to defend the perimeter player too much when that wasn't what he was supposed to do. And it is what it is. He wasn't that good. So they're going to have to scour free agency for just a not bad 5, I guess. I guess there could be like the potential for a sign and trade with Otto Porter if something really crazy was going to happen. But if that's not the case, then for $5 million, I mean, there's Kyle O'Quinn, who is a strong dude who shoots too many mid-range jumpers. There's Amir Johnson, if you think he has anything left. Aaron Baines, who was actually pretty valuable for the Celtics this year. There's Alex Len. If you squint hard enough, he might be a player. Salah Mejri actually wasn't bad if the Mavericks decline his option. So there's some options out there. They're not beautiful, but it's something. But again, you know, I do think there is some potential here for the Wizards in terms of being a versatile team. I think Austin Rivers is the type of guard that they need. Whether he's actually that guard is a different question, but still, he's gotten better. He's turned himself into at least an average ball handler and an average shot maker, and depending on the day of the week, maybe even above average. You know, it's a maybe, and I'm sure I'll fast forward 4 months and I'll be making another video on the Wizards because I can't quit these guys for whatever reason. So we'll see what happens.